All right, welcome back to TEW Impact for Week 1, July 2022. I hope everyone out there watching this had a good holiday season. I meant to do this probably earlier in the season, but I've had all week off from work and the urge to be lazy got to me, so um I was originally going to do this probably Christmas Day. I had Christmas Day free, but I didn't, and then I've just been well, I wouldn't say lazy ever since, but past couple days definitely. Um Trying to get that in before I go back to work. But hope everyone out there's doing good. Let's just go into news. We got a lot of it. The show itself, I don't know if the show itself is gonna be an afterthought. So it might be something I breeze through. I'm kind of tired still, but whatever. News. Let's go into it because there is a lot. Like I said, we are at the first week of July, so not only do we have Impact news, but we got uh just news and lots of news in general, but also we got end of month news, so we got financial news, we got half year awards, which I'm gonna go into a little bit. Unfortunately, we didn't get any, but it's still something I'd like to look at just to show what's going on, elsewhere in our game. But as for us, last week's BTI 0.01 rating as always, and a 30 overall rating, which is the same as last week. So no change for BTI. Impact's TV rating was a 0.30, which was up from 0.28 last week, and then overall rating was a 47, up from a 40, and then attendance was 342, up from 339. So slowly going back up. Um, wouldn't call Slammiversary a disappointment, but it was definitely a dip somewhat in quality, unexpected dip. But like I said, we've been doing all right, so a minor dip is all right. Uh, our overall rating was 47. That makes it the second best impact that we ever did last week, thanks to Samoa Joe's farewell promo that he gave at the end of the show, which was probably the best segment I've booked so far, which is kind of sad. But if you think about it, just I could just trot someone out and hey, cut a promo, but anything I book, like any sort of idea, doesn't really do numbers. So whatever. Let's just keep going. Lots of impact news, like I said. Some of it random, but a lot of it contract related. Not contract related was from last week on Impact where Heath got injured. He suffered a dislocated hip in the match with Rhino against Eric Young and Damian O'Connor. Thankfully, he'll only be out 28 days. So he's only out, a month. It's not like we really had plans for him, so him being on the shelf won't hurt us that much. Samoa Joe's deal with Impact has run out. Like I mentioned last week, like last week was his last appearance. So, Joe's gone from us, and so is Scott Demore. We released him. His contract. We will. We released him from his contract. So no more Scott Demore. He's with NXT, just like Samoa Joe. So that relationship has officially finished, unless for whatever reason he leaves NXT. It's not like we released him on bad terms. It's just that the fact that working Impact and NXT just kind of feels like a uh, conflict of interest. So we just cleared that up for him. Tyler Bateman has retired from in-ring completion. He is still available as a manager. This actually kind of screwed up some plans that I had for um against all odds, some minor plans. I was able to, change course a little bit. It's not like there were major plans anyway, but for some reason, I thought he was going to retire after against all odds and not before. So, but he is retired, um, at least from wrestling. He's still available as a manager, so we'll pivot from there. The plan always with Tyler Bateman's retirement was just to push Brody as a singles from then on, but we could probably just pair Bateman as Brody's manager, which probably what we'll be doing from here on out, just to keep them together, just not as a tag team. Eddie Edwards, Jimmy Jacobs, and Raj Singh have signed contract extensions. I originally did post their terms, but as this kind of filled up, I ran out of room. Eddie's is a written, and I think he's at like 600 a month or somewhere in that area. Come on, gather. Sorry. um, I'm pretty sure he's on a written deal. Jimmy Jacobs, I think, is on a handshake deal. He's kind of like um jack of all trades. I think he might even be a wrestler, but we were using him as a road agent and as a color commentator for BTI. And then Raj Singh, also under a handshake. Masha Slamovich accepted a handshake deal with Shimmer. We'll get into that later, but Shimmer did hire a bunch of people this week. Um, Referee Brian Stifler accepted a handshake deal with AAW. Alex Shelley took another one night deal with AIW, this time teaming with Eddie Kingston to defeat Matt Cardona and Lewis Linden on Go for Broke. Um, Shelley also works MLW. I'm pretty sure that's the only other place he works. So this is like the third or fourth time he's done like a one night deal with AIW. I'm kind of leery of him pulling a Cardona and going there full time, even though they're still considered like a small federation or company. But him doing these one night deals, it's like might as well just sign a contract or some sort of regular contract instead of just going constant one night deals. I don't know why he's doing it, but whatever. Um Actually kind of it kind of makes sense if you think about Shelley's like real life kind of off and on dealings. I know he has a, shoot job that he's really dedicated to. So that kind of makes sense in real life, but this isn't real life. We're dealing with, he's already working for Impact and MLW, and I use him for pretty regularly. So whatever. I just thought that was weird that he's done this like multiple times. It's like a recurring pattern. And then something else I put in here, a big time women's independent show ran in Wyoming, and for their main event, they took Chelsea Green and Britt Baker from AEW as their Fire and Nice um I guess pre fame tag team. They ran in Shimmer as Fire and Nice versus the Inspiration for their main event. Green and Baker won by DQ, so 3 out of the 4 uh of these talent being under Impact. So kind of showing that we are letting these people work elsewhere too. Most of them. Well, yeah. Now, yeah, I don't have anyone under exclusive, so yeah, everyone's pretty much available to work elsewhere. End of month news. June we did make a profit. So we are steadily making money, like usual, not a ton, but more money is better than less money. We made 65,443, down from the 87,554 for May. I wanted to explain this a little bit, but not go into super in depth. But most of our income streams increased in some shape or form. Some of our expenses increased. The notable ones I put, worker costs hit a, is like just under $20,000 increase, which I, assume between signing Samoa Joe for the month and then increased usage for some people for Slammiversary, bringing in Jeff Jarrett, even though Jeff Jarrett was a fairly cheap uh, acquisition. So worker costs increase, show costs increase like a little bit, only $2,000 increase. But then our next bit, our media, increased 35,000. If you remember, I think it was like a few weeks to a month ago, or probably this within this last month, because this didn't happen last month. But I increased Impact Plus's coverage to India, and due to that, we are going to probably lose this amount of money every month unless we sink more money into it to increase the coverage to our relative liking, I guess. So that was kind of a mistake on my part, just fooling around with things. That's something I'll have to look into to see if I want to increase that to mitigate that loss. If we had made that, just say, because I don't know if we were losing that much last month. If we added that to that profit, we would have probably beaten, our May profit. But, you know, whatever. As long as we're making money, I am happy. As long as we're not losing money. Um, so far, things are doing good. One thing we are not doing good at is our regional battle. We did drop back down to fourth out of five in the regional battle. Last couple months we were at three. But the thing was, since NWA has signed a couple of people, namely Cody Rhodes and Doc Gallows, among other names, they jumped ahead. So, like I mentioned here, NXT is at 61, which they will probably always be. But then NWA and MLW were tied at 52. Impact is 48, and Shine is at 44. So I don't remember the exact number, so I don't know if we dropped down, but is more a case of NWA jumping because they were in last place. They were behind Shine. The awards for the half year, like I mentioned, we did not win any of them, but again, something I would like to look at. Wrestler of the half year has been Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens just winning the Raw Tag Team titles a few weeks ago with Drew McIntyre. Company of the half year was New Japan, which most of these awards are New Japan. Tag team Kenta and Taiji Ishimori. Uh, these were I actually did uh, toy with the idea of bringing them in at one point. Because they're the junior tag team champions, I think, in New Japan. And since they're Bullet Club, I kind of wanted to bring them in and that whole Chris Bay Bullet Club departure thingy, maybe incorporate them with the Good Brothers in some shape or form. But factoring Taiji Ishimori is a former X Division champion, and bringing Kenta in would, definitely bump us up a bit. By just something I didn't really get around to do. Something I could play with maybe in the future if I get a chance. But I didn't know they were like that highly regarded to be like tag team of the half year. So uh kind of a shock to see that. Match of the half year was Tanahashi versus Okada at Road to Dominion Day 3. I did not look to see how good that match was, rating wise. The show also, Road to Dominion Day 3, was show of the half year. Young wrestler Utami Hayashishita, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is young wrestler of the half year. Veteran of the half year, Hiroshi Tanahashi, which, having match of the year makes sense. Female wrestler of the half year, Becky Lynch. There was some title. I think it happens later on this week, but I I'll shut up now just in case. This is stuff I put together like we earlier this week, so kind of having trouble remembering. And then independent wrestler Averno, who I think just won AAA mega titles. Verno won something like recently. I can't remember. Um, Maybe I'll go back and look, but maybe I won't. Let's move on. Okay. Yeah, WWE news, I'll get into that, but the Becky Lynch thing is in here. Lots of title changes this past week, but also Sheamus. Sheamus has left WWE. His contract was run out, not renewed. He did have one final match, teaming with the Viking Raiders at Hell in a Cell and losing to Damian Priest and the Street Profits. Um, I would not be opposed to bringing Sheamus in. I know he's on the probably the tail end of his career, but he, at least in real life has been doing quite well lately. Um, he would definitely be a big star for us, but like I said, we're making money, but not tons of money, so he could be out of our price range. Who knows? But I would not be opposed to bringing him in. I'll just say don't, hold your breath. Uh, Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell to regain the IC title, his third reign with the title. Um, Jinny defeated Meiko Satomura at NXT UK Takeover 9 to win the NXT UK Women's title. It was their first reign. So, Takeover 9 happened on Saturday. Hell in a Cell happened on Sunday. And then on Monday, Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley teamed up to defeat Carmella and Zelina on Raw to win the women's tag team titles, their first reign. So yeah, that Becky Lynch, female wrestler of the half year, news that I was alluding to did happen this week. Yeah, a team I definitely would be a fan of if it happened in real life. But yeah, they are tag team champions. Nikki Storm suffered a strained latissimus dorsi on Raw. Weak to heel, not expected to miss time, so no big deal. Contract extensions for Zia Brookside, Ridge Holland, and Andre Chase. And then in a funny note, um, I put in here Randy Orton was loaned to NXT. I don't remember when the loan started, but I think this was his only appearance. He appeared on NXT, lost to Guru Raj in the main event, but that same night, Raj had previously been in the first dark match of 205 Live and lost to Josh Briggs. So Randy Orton's only appearance was to lose to someone who was losing in dark matches. So I don't know that's NXT. So hey, that's a Demorth decision. So he's making those decisions now. So I don't know what he's thinking. Um, American news overall, elsewhere in America, for AEW, referee Mike Posey has left. Their contract has run out, or his contract has run out. Um, we might be good on referees, but Mike Posey is a former TNA alumni, so we could bring him in. But like I said, we are pretty good on referees. I think. Whatever. It's something we'll think about. Trent and Ruby Soho have extended their handshake deals, and then um AEW's lowered their production values and stuff. Like they did it multiple times in the same day, so I think they lowered it. Either they lowered it or bumped it back up or down. I don't know. I don't remember how the tiers work, but production values went to high quality and then to professional, and then their live experience went down to small and then to volunteer. So that might be something I would want to investigate later if I think about it. Maybe AEW is losing money, and they're not like super hire happy like they are in real life. So they haven't made any like major acquisitions. So who knows? That might be something to look at. Maybe they're not doing as well as they thought. I know there are lots of times where they will run in places and only get like 300 to 500 people in an arena. So it's only in like their general area that they do, really good uh, attendance. Anywhere else, they seem to do pretty low attendance for whatever reason. For GCW, Eddie Kingston was loaned to them from AEW, but that loan has ended. He lost to Jimmy Lloyd in a dog collar match in the main event of Tournament Survival, where no tournament actually took place, much like AIW's J-Lit this year, happening at the rap show and not at the actual J-Lit event. NWA Sky Blue has extended her handshake deal, and then Shimmer, like I mentioned earlier, went on a hiring spree. They hired Masha Slamovich, Jessica Havoc, who we just released from Impact, Santana Garrett, Rain, Laney Luck, and Jessamine Duke. So Shimmer making moves again, beefing up their roster. International news. CMLL, Mystico 2 defeated El Barbaro Cavernario at Lucha Azteca to win their world middleweight title, his first reign. Noah, some big Noah news. They just had their Global Junior Tag League show. Funky Express of Muhammad Yode and Shuhei Taniguchi defeated M's Alliance of Keiji Muto and Marufuji to win the GHC tag team titles, their first reign. And then Sugi Uragun of Kazushi Sakuraba and Kendo Kishin won the tag league, the global junior tag team tournament overall, defeating Ikuto, Hidaka, and Yohei in the finals. They are currently the junior tag team champions as opposed to the GHC tag team champions of Funky Express now. And both men are set to retire soon. So again, sending these people that are retiring out on a high note, but Kazushi Sakuraba also suffered a dislocated ankle. He'll be out for a few weeks. So I think they wrestled 2 matches. I think they only had like 2 rounds of the actual tag league tournament at that show. So, but yeah, 2 matches too many, and then suffered a dislocated ankle, I guess. So, and then ICW had some title changes. Jack Jester defeated Aspen Faith and Joe Hendry at the I Ain't Your Pal Dick Face show to win the GOTG title, his first reign, and then Leon Thompson and Jackie Polo defeated Bonesaw and Damian Corbin to win the tag team titles, their first reign. As I mentioned before, Damian Corbin set to leave ICW, so dropping the tag team titles. And I think when I went to double check, he's also their their gender neutral title champion. Did not have that title, so either that title is defunct or he dropped it and I didn't see it. So basically just getting ready for him to leave. Um like it matters. I don't even know who that is. I don't really follow ICW that much. But New Japan, Great O'Karn extended his exclusive written contract and then Ice Ribbon have risen to small size. Retirements, not a lot, but some notable names announced: Gerald Briscoe, Greg Gagne, Black Buffalo, Devin Storm, Tony DeVito, and Eva Marie. Eva Marie, kind of shocking considering she's been tearing it up in PWG of all places, but she is retiring. And then retirements going into effect: Dutch Mantel, Great Kabuki, Jim Ross, Danny Davis, Hector Guerrero, Rick Martel, Iron Sheik, Necro Butcher, John Zandig, Danny Cage, Kevin Kleinrock, Masakatsu Funaki, who opened up a school, Kerry Silkin, Doug Gilbert, C.J. Perry, Prince Iakea, Steve Kern, Jim Powers, Ron Harris, Sonny Ono, Dave Lagana, Joe Koff, Tyler Bateman, who I mentioned earlier, and Flash Flanagan. And then in a bit of random news, Jeff Cobb has called off his engagement to whoever he's engaged to. So, uh, once again, this game hates love. Wants to split up all of our couples. So, unfortunately, Jeff Cobb a victim of that. And then before the impact, go over this real quick. I think this is the last bit of news before we go into impact. We start with Killer Kelly over Brandy Lauren. booked last week by Madison Rain. Not much of a match. I booked it as pretty much a squash, but even then, Killer Kelly was off her game, so that hence the somewhat low uh, score. Brandy, not really the best either, but I think they were also like considering Killer Kelly was off her game, they were kind of on par. So a low score for that match. After the match, um, basically Madison Rain gets in the ring with Killer Kelly. They don't quite do a 2-on-1 because eventually Xiaozia, our digital media champion, comes out. Not necessarily for the save, not necessarily to save Brandy Lauren, but she kind of has a stare down with Killer Kelly, hopefully teasing a future match between the two. And then we go backstage where Masha Slamovich, she had a match with Xiaozia last week and lost. She's kind of, bummed up sitting in the well, not the locker room, but just backstage, burning out, kind of bummed out until Diener approaches her rather creepily and just kind of like whispers in her ear about how he can see like the violent tendencies inside of her. It's just something that she's holding back for whatever reason, and Diener can help her unleash the violence and blah blah blah. And Diener eventually, scatters away, leaving Masha to wonder what he is talking about. So setting something up for Masha Slamovich in the future, possibly with Diener. We'll see what happens there. And then we get a promo from uh, Mercedes Martinez, Tasha Steelz, Savannah Evans, and Janai Kai. I still don't have a cool name for this group, but basically, uh, promo spearheaded by Mercedes about how she was called in about front, by Tasha, you know, a group that was not earning the respect that they wanted, so they called her in, and she's basically going to take that respect that they should be earning, and the first victim, as evident from the attack last week, was Jordynne Grace. So basically, um, an injectment of intensity to this group. Hopefully, did not really do great for the promo, but overall, hopefully, getting these group of ladies, on TV doing things in somewhat high profile matches, especially with Mercedes in tow. And then Larry D defeated Falaba, but only by DQ. Basically, we have Falaba going nuts, disqualified for excessive violence or what have you. So after years of being the cuddly teddy bear, we're trying to book him as a big fat villain monster, I guess. So we'll see how that works out. But overall, rating of 28 for Before the Impact. And let's go to Impact before my computer dies because my battery's running low. To start off Impact, we get a match of Trey Miguel and Sam Beal, who I have the team of which I have named Rep 419 as the area code for Northwest Ohio, pretty much. Um, versus Laredo Kid and Commander, and it's the AAA team getting the win. Commander pinning Sam Beal with a roll up. Segment rating of 35, not a bad, rating to start off with, especially considering we could, Sam Beal has previously been the weak link. Commander had an in-ring performance lower, but you know, uh, again, this mod seems to rate things low. Um, Commander doing quite well for himself in real life right now, but the point Laredo Kid and Commander have absolutely zero chemistry as partners. which is good to know. I could have, I originally was going, this could have been any one of the other AAA people, but I wanted Laredo Kid in there kind of to bump up the numbers a little bit, I guess. But uh that kind of leads to after the match, as Team AAA celebrates, Sam Beal, I wouldn't say throws a fit, but kind of gets angry at himself and kind of gets charged up. He eventually takes a microphone. He's like, "No, no, we're not doing it this way. I'm not settling for a loss." And Trey's trying to calm him down. He's like, "No, whatever, we'll get him next time." He's like, "Oh, no, next time, let's, next time. How about next time? We'll do what we did at Slammiversary. There's four of you, there's two of us, but we can get two other people to take you guys on, right?" And Trey's like, who are we gonna get to, do this? It's not like it's not like they asked for, their partners at Slammiversary. That just kind of happened. But basically Sam Beal books uh a 8-man tag, all four members of Team AAA versus Trey and Sam and two mystery partners to be revealed at Against All Odds. Segment rating of 23 for that. And then we get a segment in the ring. Gail Kim comes out and she's like, "Okay, it's been a week." She calls Matt Striker and Ian Riccaboni to the ring, both from the uh, commentary table. They both step into the ring, and she's like, "Okay, it's been a week. Um, who are your representatives for your match at Against All Odds to determine your futures?" Striker, I'll let you choose first. And Striker's like, I'm gonna make sure I win this match and get Ian Riccaboni's ass out of my commentary table. So I picked the, biggest, baddest man beast, I guess. I know. I call in Black Taurus. So Black Taurus makes his entrance and, stands next to Stryker, and Stryker's basically proud of himself, and Gail turns it over to Ian and, tells him that, he's definitely got, hopefully made his choice well. And Ian's like, "You know what, I want to believe that I have, um, because my pick, who I honestly believe could be the future of Impact and the future of wrestling, Black Taurus is big and bad and fast, but uh, my pick is just as fast and just as furious and all that jazz." But basically hypes up his representative to be Mike Bailey. So Speedball Mike Bailey comes out. Ian and Mike Bailey shake hands. So at Against All Odds, it's going to be Black Taurus versus Mike Bailey. The winner, or rather the loser of that match, their representative is basically removed from all commentary duties. So Black Taurus loses, Matt Striker's gone. If Mike Bailey loses, Ian Riccaboni's gone. So they kind of have, all four men have a stare down. Gail Kim makes the match official. Segment rating of 29. We go backstage with Maria. She is with Michael Bennett. She recaps the fact that Michael Bennett won the main event last week, the Second Chance Dream match. So, by the terms of that match, not only does Michael Bennett get a title match against Josh Alexander at Against All Odds, but he gets to pick the stipulation. And rather, Maria takes the duties because Maria is always in charge and blah blah blah. And this is all according to plan. This is, the plan of Maria to, gain power in Impact. And like she mentioned last week, to gain power, she must, since she can't buy Impact outright, she is going to, control the world championship, somehow. But to do that, for the match between Josh Alexander and Michael Bennett, She is making it a lumberjack match. So all of Maria Kanellis will be surrounding the ring, basically trying to make sure that Michael Bennett becomes world champion. Truly against all odds. Blah, blah, blah. But and also um to further that against all odds mentality and to give Josh Alexander somewhat of a warm up match, she also announces that she has cleared with TNA officials, and tonight's main event is a handicap match. Josh Alexander tonight against Matthew Raywalt and Steve Macklin. So yeah, tonight Josh Alexander has to face off two members of Maria's group in a handicap match, and then go into a lumberjack match a couple days later at Against All Odds to defend the title. So, and this is all after his match against Samoa Joe that he just had. So, segment rating 32 for that. We go somewhat of a rematch from last week where but instead of Heath and Rhino, it's Jake Something and Rhino. So Jake Something has struck up a friendship with Rhino and Heath, and it just kind of makes sense to slot Jake into Heath's spot now that Heath is injured due to what happened last week from Eric Young and Damian O'Connor, who I've named the Hold. I don't know if I explained that, but I'm sure I'll probably explain that in due time as this feud goes along. But basically, earning somewhat of a redemption from last week after Rhino and Heath lost. Jake Something pins Damian O'Connor in this match. Eric Young, surprisingly, the weak link of this match, with a performance of 29, being off almost this whole time, really hurt him. Damian O'Connor's off of his game. Rhino's gimmick is getting stale. So segment rating 37 for that. So not too bad, but probably could have been better. All things considered, the storyline's gaining heat, which is good. But uh, basically, Jake Something and Rhino are celebrating, and then after the match, Eric Young takes the microphone and he's like, "Oh, you want to prove you're the next big thing. You think you think you can beat us. You beat us in a tag match. Last week or all this stuff. I've seen this stuff before with Joe, and Joe Doring's a flash in that pan, and you're just like Joe. He's you know all hype, and you're all hype, and I dare you to do that to me one on one against all odds. You and me, Eric Young, laying down the challenge to Jake Something, and Jake all high up on just winning the match previously accepts. So we have Eric Young versus Jake Something for the pay per view. Segment rating 32. The storyline lost heat again after gaining it with the previous match. So, setting up Eric Young versus Jake Something at the pay per view. And then later on, we go backstage and, well, actually, let's do this in the ring. Brian Myers comes out and he takes a microphone. Let's say this is after like a commercial break after all the previous stuff is done. Brian Myers comes out. He takes a microphone, cuts a promo. He's talking about how the learning tree is one branch short, if you will, after losing CPA. So they are on a recruitment drive. And he's definitely had his eye on someone to recruit. And he wants to call out Jonathan Gresham. So Jonathan Gresham uh, comes out to the ring. They stand face to face. He kind of hears what he has to say, and Myers is like, I know you've got all this hype behind you. You're the internet darling. People love you. You're a talented wrestler, but Ring of Honor world former Ring of Honor world champion, the last Ring of Honor world champion, um, you know, all this stuff. but basically you're starting over. You don't have the greatest record here in Impact. You just got pinned in the main event last week, so why don't you come under me? Why don't you come underneath my wing? Why don't you be my young boy? I can teach you how to wrestle the right way. And, basically insulting Gresham to his face. Eventually, Gresham, Myers extends the invitation to join the learning tree, but Gresham's not having any of it. He slaps Myers right away. So we saw this before about a month or so ago with Dalton Castle. So Brian Myers um, basically does the same thing, challenges Gresham to a match, and he says if Gresham loses, then he'll be forced to join the learning tree as Myers' young boy. So another match set for Against All Odds. I know we only have two shows in between these two pay-per-views, so we gotta churn out these matches fast. So Brian Myers versus Jonathan Gresham. If Gresham loses, he must join the learning tree. Segment rating of 32 for that. And then we go backstage, likely to a pre-tape. Um, we have Father Bateman now, as opposed to Tyler Bateman. Father Bateman dressed up like a creepy priest now, um, basically talking to Brody. Let's say they're in a confessional booth or something to make things extra creepy. And Father Bateman talks about how, you know, maybe he can't walk alongside of him in this path of violence that they originally intended to wreak upon Impact. But now Father can definitely be the guiding light for Brody King to uh, walk his own path of violence. And they they talk about their recent problems with Dalton Castle, and they basically say, at against all odds, we take care of Dalton Castle. We snuff the light out of Dalton Castle's eyes, and we will continue on our path of violence once again. And basically transitioning Bateman from wrestler to manager. Brody, uh, hopefully on his way to being a singles. But we now have another match for Against All Odds, Brody King versus Dalton Castle. Segment rating of 25. And then elsewhere backstage, we just have a really quick segment. Rich Swann's getting ready for his next match. And he has basically something behind him falls over. He looks around, no one's there. Uh, so he thinks he must be the wind, but also we've can't forget that Su Young has the specter of Su Young, if you will, is kind of following him lately. So can't forget about that. Segment rating of 22, and then that takes us to Rich Swann versus Willie Mack. I guess consider this their blow off match. They didn't really have any sort of resolution in Feast or Fired. That was mostly just to set up the return of Su Young. But then Rich Swann gets the win here, following interference from Su Young, but it's done in a way where Swann is unaware. Basically, he gets knocked out. Swann gets thrown out of the ring on one side. The other side, Su Young comes up, Miss Willie Mack. Rich Swann eventually gets back in. By this time, Su Young's gone. He gets the Swan Splash, gets the win. So Rich getting help from his wife, but not quite knowing how or why, or really at all. He thinks he won this match on his own. So Sigma Ring 43, good match for them. Great chemistry. And then we go backstage and have we're basically following Swerve Strickland around, the X Division champion, Swerve Strickland. He talks about how He's the X Division champ, and Impact is Swerve's house, but he thought like Impact was where all the up and coming talent is, all like the X Division talent. When he was young, you watched the X Division and saw the great talent. He looks around and there's no one's coming for his title anymore. He doesn't have a match for Against All Odds. He wasn't even here last week. No one called him out. He pinned Chris Bay. Mike Bailey's busy with Black Taurus at Against All Odds, and no one's stepping up for a challenge. So he's kind of, pacing around backstage, locker room, pointing out talent, seeing, looking at who's around, and then eventually he stops. He's like, "Okay, you." Points at someone off screen. Eventually, camera pans over, and it's Danhausen. Danhausen clutching his X Division title shot, or his briefcase rather, and Swerve's like, you won the X Division title shot. How about you come and cash that in?" And Danhausen's like, "What are you talking about? I don't have cash. I got this briefcase and it's empty. It's does not have human monies in it." And Swerve's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but how about whatever? You got that title shot. How about you cash that in? Me and you at Against All Odds." And Danhausen just confused. He's like, "No, I just want money." And Mance eventually steps in and he's like, "How about you leave him alone?" And Swerve's just like, "Oh, so finally someone's stepping up to me." And Mance is like, ever since I got here in Impact, I'm undefeated. Swerve, you're undefeated. How about we do it up at, I'm undefeated. I think that, kind of entitles me to a title shot. And Swerve's like, "Well, you're undefeated on before the Impact. You know, I'm undefeated on Impact and on pay-per-views, but if you want a shot, come and get it." So solidifying another match for Against All Odds. Swerve Strickland versus Mance Warner for the X Division title. Swerve, backs away, finally, satisfied he's got a match, leaving Danhausen to thank Mance Warner, who he calls Mace Windu, for the help. And Mance is trying to explain to Danhausen that, you know, the briefcase is the title shot. It's not for money, and Danhausen just not having anything of it. And then eventually, we fade out. Segment ring of 30. Full disclosure, I had other plans for Swerve and completely forgot about them for Against All Odds. I was going to bring someone in as a one shot, but completely forgot. Uh, I'm not going to spoil it in case I bring them in the future, but in real life, I think it would have been a pretty cool match. But at least this way, we get Danhausen and Mance off of Before the Impact and onto the main show proper. Danhausen still has that, X Division title shot. We can see if Mance hangs on pay-per-view. He's been doing fairly well on Before the Impact. It's a way to get them up on the main roster. So, you know, kind of a last minute change, but hopefully something will work out. All right. So, elsewhere, backstage, we see another briefcase now belonging to Hernandez. Hernandez, the holder of the tag team title shot, he's walking around, he's looking for someone, and it doesn't take much time before he finds who he's looking for. And it's Homicide. And really, it's just a few seconds. They look at each other, they look each other up and down. Homicide sees the tag title briefcase. Hernandez nods, and they're like, "Want to do this one more time?" And they're like, "Damn right, we can do this one more time." And they cut a brief promo challenging the Wolves. Hernandez cashing in his tag team title shot. Hernandez tag, the team of LAX, the OGs of LAX, if you will, um, back together again. They know that the Wolves are going around. They hold the title for most Impact title reigns. They're going around telling themselves they're the best team in Impact history, but they may have beaten the Guns, but until they beat someone like LAX, they don't think they can uh, hold that claim for the best team in Impact history. So we are getting the Wolves versus LAX at Against All Odds for the tag team title, segment ranking of 33. Storyline is advanced but lost heat. Even though storyline is more so Wolves versus Guns, we are putting LAX back together, possibly as a somewhat of a farewell tour. Um, to see if they can, hang with the Wolves, to see if they're possibly past their prime, but, from the rate of their promo, they don't think so. We get a match stemming from last week from the main event where W Morrissey versus PCO. Morrissey thought about taking the pin and the win in that second Chance Dream match, but was interrupted by PCO. He hesitated and was thrown out forcefully by PCO, and by PCO flinging his body at him. And they both ran outside. So we are putting them together here. Two big men, Morrissey versus PCO. But it's Morrissey who eventually gets the win. And it seems like it's surprise interference from Lance Archer, who basically PCO or Morrissey and PCO once again fighting on the outside. Morrissey eventually crawls back into the ring. PCO goes for it, but Lance Archer runs out, grabs him, and throws him into the steel steps behind the ref's back. Morrissey takes the control, hits the East River Crossing. I don't remember what that move is, so either, yeah, let's say he does that. Uh, but basically, Lance Archer coming in to attack PCO of all people, um, and helping W Morrissey get the win. Segment rating 27, not that great of a match. They both had an in-ring performance of 30, but as Morrissey celebrates and makes his way to the back, and PCO is laid out in the ring, Lance Archer takes the mic and he's talking about how he came to make sure. He's like, how it's like I say, everyone dies, and I know last week I talked about how I came after Joe Doring, but Joe's still in Japan somewhere and blah blah blah. And actually this show he was booked for Japan, so I didn't plan on booking him, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't. But Archer talking about how, if I can't beat up Joe, if Joe's, in Japan, I'm gonna beat up somebody. And PCO, it looks like you'll do. So he continues beating up PCO. PCO tries to fight back, but it's not a whole lot. The damage has already been done, and eventually Lance Archer puts PCO through a table, and then also um, challenges PCO to a match at Against All Odds. So another match for Against All Odds. We had to definitely get these matches announced. Lance Archer versus PCO. Battle of big guys, big violent guys. Segment rating of 39, so better than the match. Lance Archer probably using PCO as somewhat of an example to show to Joe Doring what he's capable of. I guess we'll find out the pay-per-view. Um, we go backstage. Gia Miller is interviewing Jordynne Grace. Of course, Gia Miller has to talk about how Mercedes Martinez returned to help out Tasha Steelz and her crew, and asks how she feels about that and how basically Jordan's, somewhat disappointed in Mercedes' choice of friends, but you know, if they're the ones that called her up, um, I guess she understands. She wants to, Mercedes wants to be back in the running of, the knockouts, if you will. But Jordynne says that's not going to happen, at least not at her expense, and she's going to prove that at Against All Odds. So another match. We are getting Jordynne Grace versus Mercedes Martinez, 1-on-1. at against all odds, but is it going to be really one-on-one considering Mercedes has backup in the form of Tasha Steelz and her crew? Segment rating of 25 for that. Rosemary comes out to the ring with a promo or with a microphone to cut a promo. Um, and has the Knockouts Championship. Uh, she tries not to cut a carbon copy of the promo that she's been cutting the last couple weeks, but she admits that the rumors are true. People have been talking about a possible battle royal, a possible, whatever fancy name I want to call. I was going to try to give this like a creepy fancy name, but I couldn't come up with anything. But Rosemary says the rumors are true. But come as you are, invitational battle royal. Who at against all odds for knockouts, 10 knockouts. Whoever wants to show up can. The winner will get a future title shot at her knockouts title. Uh, Eventually, this brings out Deanna Prato and Chelsea Green, who talk about how they are both going to, or how each of them are going to win, which of course causes some sort of mild argument between them. Now realizing that, hey, maybe their friendship might be at stake if they're both trying to go after the Knockouts Tag Team title. And Rosemary just kind of sits back and laughs as they bicker between themselves. So, a segment for that, just to set that up. Segment rating of 38 for that. And then we go backstage for another trio where uh, basically the Aussie invasion watching on a monitor about what just happened, and the Knockouts Tag Team champions, the Inspiration, kind of browbeating Tennille. She did okay last week. She's, kind of getting in their good graces again, but they know that, hey, Tennille, you joined us because you want to be knockouts champion. You want to hold gold just like us. Well, there's your opportunity. Go enter yourself in that invitational battle royal, win that thing, then face Rosemary for the knockouts tag team titles, and you or for the knockouts title, and you can be just like us. But if you don't win, then basically, she's gonna have serious hell to pay. So, uh, pressure's on for Tennille to win the Invitational Battle Royal for a future title shot at Rosemary's Knockouts title. Segment rating of 38 for that. And then before the main event, we go backstage to Maria. She's kind of hyping up Michael Bennett for his match. Michael Bennett goes off. But before Maria can follow, she's confronted by Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, of all people. And Ace Austin holding the briefcase for the world title shot. She's kind of wondering what they want. Uh, Ace is just kind of like, I believe we can kind of help you out in your quest to make sure Michael Bennett becomes world champion. I saw you guys have a lumberjack match, but I'm only counting a few of you. It looks like you might need a few more lumberjacks. So we are providing our services. Two more lumberjacks, for you to surround the ring with. And Maria's just like, oh, I'm interested, but what do you want? And Ace Austin just kind of like, you know what? You don't have to pay me or do anything because, when it's all said and done, if your plan B doesn't work out, I just want to be in prime position for my plan C. And he holds up his world title shot. So basically, Austin worming his way into being a lumberjack, and also Fulton too, worming their way into being lumberjacks. So in case, uh, something should happen, Ace Austin could easily cash in his title shot at any moment. Segment rating of 30 for that. And then our main event, Josh Alexander defeating Matthew Raywalt and Steve Macklin. Um, Basically, we are really putting on the against all odds theme because we have interference from Michael Bennett. Robert Evans is also at ringside, but basically, it's a 2-on-1. But Josh Alexander fights back. Michael Bennett goes to interfere. He accidentally goes to hit Alexander, hits Steve Macklin instead. Alexander, you know, capitalizes, hits Macklin with Tombstone Piledriver, and Matthew Raywalt is enough out of position where he can't break up the pinfall. He gets the win. Josh Alexander beating the odds, a 2-on-1 match with, multiple people already at ringside. Segment rating of 42 for that, but it doesn't take long for things to go haywire. Basically, Bennett comes back in, clocks Alexander, Macklin or Raywalt joins in. Macklin eventually joins in once he comes to. Caruso, I guess, is out there too. Robert Evans, Matt Striker's cheering along at commentary. So basically, Josh is getting pounded by all of Maria's, crew until eventually Jeff Jarrett comes out wielding his, peacemaker, if you will, of a guitar, swinging it wildly. Does not really get to hit anybody, but the damage is done. Maria's crew wants to they bail. They want to make sure they're not any men down for the against all odds pay per view. But basically, they all bail, leaving Josh and Jeff Jarrett alone in the ring. And Jeff's all smiles. He's like, yeah, basically, he's all smiles. He's like, I did a good job. I saved the Impact World Champion. And Josh still he thanks him, but he's still, he's like, there's just something like it's either like he can't fully trust Jarrett, or if he feels like Jarrett's, you know, Jarrett has always, ever since Slammiversary, he seems to be sticking his nose in his business and not sure that Josh likes that. So we'll see what happens, as we go along. But, the main event is set: Josh Alexander versus Michael Bennett with in a lumberjack match for the world title. All of, Maria's crew plus Ace Austin and Madman Fulton at ringside as lumberjack. Segment rating of 46 for the main event. 43 overall. The show has lost popularity in one region. I'm I don't think that's due to storylines. I know we ended a lot of storylines and started a lot of new ones, but I still think we had enough hot ones to keep going. I know we have just the general Josh Alexander as world champion storyline. We've just been slotting people in and out. Josh being the only constant, just to keep that hot. The tag titles are likely hot. The hostile takeover storyline with Maria and her crew still, doing well. So I don't think that's due to a lack of hot storylines. That might be due to something else, but we shall see. Overall rating of 43. Nothing mind blowing, but some good matches here and there. Swan and Mac, having a good blow off match. The main event doing better than I thought. Um, Raywalt, I believe, has decent stats. Macklin, I've treated as a joke up till now, but they did well in this match. So yeah. Before we go, let's go to the card for Against All Odds on our handy dandy Word document. Not even Word document. So Against All Odds, I haven't decided which matches are going to be pre-show or not. So I just listed all the matches. We shall see once, the show happens. Uh, one, what gets on the main card and what's pre-show. Lumberjack match for the Impact World Championship, truly against all odds. Josh Alexander versus Michael Bennett, Maria's Lumberjacks, Steve Macklin, Black Taurus, W. Morrissey, Matthew Raybolt, Robert Evans, probably Matt Striker. He'll be at ringside. Well, maybe he won't be at ringside regardless because, he's got problems of his own that we'll get to later on. And then the addition of Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. So definitely an against all odds situation for Josh Alexander. The Impact Tag Team Champions, the Wolves of Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, defend against LAX, the reunited OGs of LAX, Homicide and Hernandez. The X Division Championship match, Swerve Strickland gets an unlikely challenger in the form of Mance Warner. Um, Rosemary's Come As You Are Battle Royal Invitational 10-woman Battle Royal. Winner earns a future shot at the Knockouts Championship. Confirmed names so far: Deanna Perazzo, Chelsea Green, Tennille Dashwood, and I also wrote down Masha Slamovich. Uh, we'll just say she, announces something. Uh, but yeah, Masha Slamovich will also be in. More names to, well, I guess we'll find out. There's gonna be 4 out of 10, so maybe there'll be some surprises in there. Jordynne Grace versus Mercedes Martinez. Um, 1-on-1, but like I said, was it truly gonna be one on? It's probably gonna be another against all odds situation because Mercedes going to be flanked by Tasha Steelz, Savannah Evans, and Janai Kai. Lance Archer versus PCO. Brian Myers versus Jonathan Gresham. If Gresham loses, he will join the learning tree and become Brian Myers' young boy. Jake Something versus Eric Young. Speedball Mike Bailey versus Black Taurus. If Mike Bailey loses, Ian Riccaboni is removed from commentary duties. If Black Taurus loses, Matt Striker is removed from commentary duties. So, evening the commentary duties. Uh, Stakes are high, I guess. Brody King with Father Bateman in his corner versus Dalton Castle. And then Trey Miguel and Sam Beal and two mystery partners versus Team AAA. Laredo Kid, Commander, Astrolux, and Gotita de Plata. That's our Against All Odds card. Thanks for tuning in. Um, like I said, we are winding down. Against All Odds will probably be the last card I do for a while. I'll get into it more when um I do Against All Odds, but basically going to be taking an extended break after Against All Odds. Mostly I've just kind of hit a creative block. Maybe there'll be some things on this channel that I might play with. If there's video topics you want to see, like in game, if you want me to look at certain things, I will. But as far as booking future shows, those might be uh, a little bit slim pickings, at least until uh, inspiration strikes. So join me next time for Against All Odds, and then after that, who knows. So thank you for tuning in.